Army is, and a bit about Crystal and why she started the organisation in the first place. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
Yeah, hey Megan, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm really excited about our chat because you know how I feel about Blue Dot Army. I think what you've done is fantastic. So would you mind telling us a little bit about what Blue Dot Army actually is and what specifically, because I always love the Blue Dot reference, what's it all about?
Yes, I know it's a little bit of a funny one, isn't it? People think, Blue Dot, what's that? But what the Blue Dot represents is when you're diagnosed with cancer, and depending on the type of cancer and what treatment you have to have, but if you have traditional radiation, which is what I needed to have, the way that they line you up to give you the number of radiation treatments you need, which depending, again, it could be up to like 36 treatments, the best way for them to do that is to give you a permanent tattoo in the shape of a little blue dot. And so they line you up and then they crack you like a safe, 23 to the left, however many to the right, and then they've got that tattoo that they line it up. So for me, it was funny when I reflect back, not funny, but when I reflect back, the emotions that were charged because of that blue dot. And it really was huge for me. Like some days I hated the blue dot, some days I was like, don't understand what you're all about. And it really does change your world. And I guess for me, I sort of looked at it, my cancer journey was what I called a life interruption, because it doesn't matter what you do, it interrupts your life, the people around you, and you have to adjust, and constantly different emotions come up for different reasons. So the blue dot to me, it's so tiny, honestly, you can hardly see it. But when I first got my blue dot, it was like bigger than Ben-Hur. It was huge because it faced me every day in the mirror. There was nothing I could do to not see it. So it was so significant for me that when I decided to start Blue Dot, it was about that, going back to that time of sort of staring every day at this blue dot. Yeah.
And I think that's really significant because unless you've gone through that journey of having to go through chemo or the cancer journey, which, like you always say, cancer is its audience and its customers don't really ask for it. It's something that just unfortunately happens to some people, but it's something that unites you all. It's something that you can actually all kind of nod to one another, go, yeah, I had one of them too. And everyone will have a story about what that blue dot signified for them and how it made them feel, which I think it's horrendous in so many ways, but also really nice because it's such a lonely process, which I know for you it was a lonely process, which is why the Blue Dot Army came around in the first place. Tell us a bit about what you do as the Army, because I can't get away with the amount of stuff that you do, and really you're doing it on your own.
Well, we're going to have to start to build the Army, I think, because it's sort of, definitely flourishing. But I guess if I look at my background, so my background has really been in tourism and hospitality. That's the space that I've been in from probably my early 20s, I suppose. And so I'm all about the person, the customer, and the experience. So I even say to people, customer service isn't enough anymore. It's about the experience. So if you go somewhere, it's not about going, oh, that was great customer service. There'll be something that someone did that you weren't expecting that will change your whole view about, that experience. So for me, it was a really big thing about that. I remember sitting in the waiting room and, when you get to meet some of the people and you hear the stories, it's sad, it's amazing, and it's everything that you just think, how did this come to be like this? So for me, it was bringing what I knew, which is tourism and hospitality, bringing it to the forefront and changing the experience, particularly in those waiting rooms, was where I kind of got the whole idea from. And so we sort of have three separate sections, I suppose you could say, for the charity, which has sort of evolved as it is. One of them is we've set up something which is a first in Australia, my understanding. Someone did say to me they think it's the first in the world, but I'm not prepared to claim that one because I don't really know. But anyway, I'm definitely happy to say first in Australia. So we've started what we call Blue Dot Hotels. And what we've done, we've teamed up with a couple of girls based here in Perth, Chemo at Home. So they obviously go to people's homes and administer their cancer treatment. And in amongst the waiting rooms and meeting some of these amazing people that lived from the regions, and I found out that there's actually a bus that comes up from Mandurah every day for people that sort of live nearby, and it brings them up and drops them off at their little hospital, and they go and have their blasting, and then it picks them up and takes them home. And I remember thinking to myself, gee, that's awesome, but what about people who live further than Mandurah? What happens to them? And throughout my time in those waiting rooms and speaking with people, you know, some of it was sad, like women who particularly who just said, I'm actually not going to take treatment because I'll be away from my family for 6 weeks and I can't do it. And that just broke my heart. That I thought, surely we can come up with something. So talking to these girls who do the chemo at home, of course, they're all about, you know, don't have the waiting room experience. You don't have the fear of the parking, you know, when you're sitting in the waiting room saying, did I put enough in the parking meter? All those sort of things. So what we've done now is created this environment. So for people who don't reside in Perth, or if they do reside in Perth and feel like they just want to not have their treatment at home, they can take this offer up. We've got some incredible rates at the hotel. And of course, the nurses come to the hotel to deliver the treatment. So that's a whole new experience for people who are having chemotherapy. The other thing we offer is a concierge program. So that's the part that's the part that really, really excites me, because that's the part where basically we just look after people. And I don't know how else to explain it other than we may get referred to people just to ring them up, and most of the times I actually don't even know what cancer they have. Until maybe I meet them face to face, and in a conversation they may tell me, because for me that's not our business. Our business is, and our tagline is, we focus on the person, not the disease. Yeah. So we become a one-stop shop for people, and we just say, so what do you need? You know, if you're not from Perth, do you need help with getting accommodation? If you're going to lose your wig during chemotherapy, do you want to hit the shops and we go looking for a wig? What colour do you want to be? All those sort of things. And it's actually, funnily enough, based on like a travel agency model.
Which is your background, so.
Yeah, so, you know, what we do is we present the people with options. So we don't tell them this is what you have to do. These are the options. So we go out, source what we can within their budget, and, and just help them to sort of navigate that process. It might even be simply sitting in the waiting room with them.
I think that's incredible though, Crystal, because, you know, we've talked about this so many times. Cancer is not something you sign up for. It's not something that, you know, you're planning for, and you really have got no idea what you're going to need or what you're going to want. If, and hopefully, touch wood, it never happens to anyone who's listening, but, you know, some people are possibly going through it at the moment. You've got no idea, and not many people are actually willing to have that conversation quite openly. Someone that we actually had on the podcast a couple of months back, Andy Storch, he's going through the chemo journey at the moment in America, and he's documenting the whole thing. And I'm learning so much, hopefully stuff that I'm never going to have to experience or need to know. But if I was going through that, it just takes away that, because you're scared, because you haven't got a clue what's going on. At least if you know what to expect and how someone feels, you know, so when you get that symptom, you go, yeah, well, that, you know, I've heard that's a thing, you know, because it's so hard to speak to a real person. Like, the internet's a great thing. It's oodles of information, but to speak to a real person that can actually help you, because, you know, as you know yourself, your time with the doctor is limited. It's in and out, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's like a real process, I guess. And I think, you know, it's and it depends, you know, when someone's diagnosed, I mean, you just go, honestly, it's just like this cover goes over you, this shield, this, I don't know what it is, this whole armor thing that you think, I've got to stand up and fight this. But in amongst it, you still have to do all the normal things. So if you're a mum with kids, you still got to get the kids to school. And, you know, we had a lady last year, and I guess you could say she fell between the cracks. Okay, so she's a mother of 4 kids, and her youngest, 9, was diagnosed with a brain tumour, and they live about 54 kilometres from Perth. So they didn't qualify for government assistance, because with any government assistance, it's 100 kilometres or more. So we were talking with the Children's Hospital, and the concern for young Riley was, if there was an emergency and he had to come up by ambulance, what does that look like to have to go to 54 kilometres to emergency? So we saw some accommodation, we had some options, went into the hospital, met with mum. Over the time, met with Riley, and as it turned out, he had a little bit of a setback and ended up with meningitis. So he was treated as an inpatient. So the accommodation side of it didn't end up needing to be required. But mum, for 110 days, her journey did not change, where she would drive up to the hospital, she'd be there, Dad would then come in and take over, and then she would drive back the next 24 hours and spend with the 3 kids. And I said to her, and I guarantee while you're driving back, the kids are on the phone, Mum, what about this, and she's probably cooking in her head, you know, doing all the stuff. Even the laundry, she said the kids had to be so organised. She bought them all a basket with their name on it, so when the washing came in and out, she'd be doing all this sort of stuff. So for 110 days, she couldn't change that routine because obviously, you know, Riley needed her. And then when it got the chance close to Christmas that it looked like he may be able to go home for Christmas, and they were doing some little things, testing, putting him in the car whether he could sit up and everything, I said to her, I'm going to come and steal you for 2 hours. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, tell the kids, no calling, I've got you for 2 hours. So I went and picked her up from the hospital and I drove her. We went and I said to her, you give me your phone and you tell the world to just go away for 30 minutes. And I sent her into one of those, you know, the little walk-in massage. So she had a neck, shoulder and back massage. Yep. And she came out and she said, I actually had a headache for 2 days and I just didn't even have time to think about it. So she'd been taking tablets just to sort of get her through that headache. So she had the massage and then we sat down and had some nice lunch and chat. And then I took her off to food bank and I said, stock up your shelves, you know, for Christmas, for the cupboards and everything. And then I took her back to the hospital and she was just, for that, just that brief moment, she could just be her, you know, for that couple of hours and not have to worry about anyone, not making decisions, medical decisions or anything, just a little bit of time for her. And that's what's so special about our concierge program. You know, just read the signs and we go, you know what, Mum just needs a little bit of time out. She might not be the one having the actual treatment to her body, but man, is she involved in that whole process, you know.
And that's the thing, it's the impact not just of the person going through it, but everyone else around them as well. Now, Crystal, your story is slightly different, and before we get into that, you know, 15-year-old Crystal probably wasn't sitting in the classroom thinking, oh, you know, cancer story and you know, might get that and then start a foundation, you know, down the track. It's not exactly the sort of line that most young people would be taking. What was 15-year-old Crystal thinking of doing?
You know what? I knew exactly what I wanted to do at 15. I knew where I was going in my life. I wanted a job where I could sit and type all day long.
Really?
Yep. I taught myself how to touch type when I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
I went to secretarial college and after third year high or whatever they call it now, and I did the secretarial one and I was in my element because at 16 I landed the job of a lifetime. I ended up a job in a typing pool and I just typed all day long and I loved it. I was in the government and at 19 I became the typist supervisor and I was, I think, one of the youngest supervisors at the time. They were all like, oh, she's too young to do it. And I had reached the pinnacle of my career at 19.
Do you still love typing?
Oh, I don't mind. I mean, I do it now. I can be sort of reading a book or doing something else and still typing. My sister used to always, I used to have to type all her assignments. So I don't look at the keyboard. I touch type everything, every symbol and everything. And I'll be watching the news and she'll be calling out what she wants me to type and I'd type up her assignment. She used to pay for it, of course. And I'd type up all her assignments and everything when she was at uni. Yeah, I loved it. That was just the ultimate for me.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. So I'm kind of glad because it's a skill that's definitely helped all the way through my life anyway.
Oh, I bet. Of that, then when did you get into tourism?
Well, I think there were some changes in amongst the jobs and I had a couple of supervisory jobs and I went through, I think, probably my first midlife crisis and I was like, what the hell do I want to do? And back then we did have some career kind of counselling people. And so I went in and did a bit of a test. And at the end of this test, not a test as in what, but just a what do you want to do thing. And at the end of it, it came out with a couple of options and one of them was travel. And I was like, gee, I wouldn't have picked that. So then I looked online and there was a course at TAFE and I signed up and I actually did the course. I think at the time you had to get a pass mark of 75% because it was things like you had to construct airfares and all these really tricky things. Now we just click and tick and it's all good sort of thing. But you had to do a lot of manually back then. And I actually failed the first time. Now, normally I'd be like, oh, well, that's a stupid course and I'm not going to do it. But I sat there and I thought, no, blow you, I'm going back and I'm going to get it. So I went back and did the test again and passed. And then I happened to I got a little buzz about travel. I don't know what it was. I mean, I come from a family of 6 kids, so we never travelled anywhere together. because we couldn't even fit in one car. My mum didn't drive. And so I was like, I don't know where this travel thing, maybe it was because I'd been cooped up or something. And I was applying for all these jobs, and I happened to just see one for Ansett Airlines, as it was, or Ansett Australia, as some people might know it. And it was the second airline in Australia. So it was Qantas and Ansett back in the day. And I applied for the job, and I remember getting a call like about 9 o'clock at night or something. I thought, this can't be real. People don't ring at this time of night. And this man said to me, oh, we just wanted to see if you wanted to come in for an interview. We thought we'd tack you on. And I was like, wow, tack me on. So anyway, I got tacked on, and I went in for an interview, and I got the job, and I started with the airline. And I was with that airline for 14 years until it collapsed in 2001. And yeah, and then in that, so my whole world went from just typing, like I was so excited about that. And then, yeah, went into the world of travel, airlines, and then hotels, and then started my own little travel business, which was the reason behind the travel business was because obviously that's what I've known for most of my career. But it was, how do you put tourism and hospitality into something that needs to be fixed in the cancer world? You know, or it's really all about customer experience. And I remember I went and saw this guy who's like a business advisor, and I had to book online. I booked online. I booked him out for an hour, and I said, oh, I wanted to rebrand, you know, my travel agency. And I thought, I could just imagine this guy thinking, well, it's an hour of my life I'm not going to get back. I mean, how do you rebrand a travel agency? So, of course, I went in all excited and telling him. He's like, yeah. And then I started to tell him my story. And, you know, with the cancer journey, I said, I want to bring it in with travel. Surely, you know, wellbeing travel or something, it can come together under that. And he said, I hate to say it, but he said, a travel agent is a travel agent. And he said, you need to start a second business. And I was like, excellent. So we talked a few things through, and I said, well, I don't think I could start a business about me. I mean, really, I'm just a name of someone who's been through cancer like so many others. It just, you know, wouldn't really fly. And then I said to him, but I could start something about Blue Dot. And he said, what's that? So when I told him the history of the Blue Dot, he was just so gobsmacked, really. He said, I've never heard anyone actually refer to it as the Blue Dot. And then he said, oh, my sister-in-law had radiation. Would she have a blue dot? I said, more than likely. And he was like, wow. And then somebody else and somebody else. So it just sort of blossomed from there. I remember standing in the lawyer's office, you know, talking to them about it. This guy, very straight, suit, tie and everything. And when I told him about the blue dot, he just laughed. He just went, this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, yeah, it just flourished from that. So I knew that that little blue dot was going to mean something to me one day.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think he said the right thing to you, because you know, a travel agent is a travel agent, but I love how you've combined all those skills that you have to be able to do something with it, because, you know, lots of people go through a process that's quite nasty, you know, whatever, you know, and things that are medical and life-threatening are generally things that spurs on the most to start foundations and start things that, you know, because we want to help the next person that has to go through it. But it's very hard for, you maybe you're someone who's got a lot of money, so in which case it's fine. If you throw enough money and you can gather the right people, anything can happen. But, you know, it's different to be able to have something that actually has an impact and can actually help, as opposed to just be a front and a feel good. And I mean, Stefan and I came to your Blue Dot lunch probably last year now, and you know, it was fantastic. That was a room full of people who you have impacted over the years in some way or another. Some of them have gone through their own journey with cancer. Some of them haven't. They just are very close to you and so passionate about what you're doing. And I think that's an amazing testament to the work that you're doing, because touch wood, and thankfully neither Stefan and I have gone through cancer, but you know, we couldn't not go to it. It was such an amazing event. And
yeah, well, I'm here to tell you this year's going to be bigger and better, so that's exciting.
Yes, oh, we'll be there, don't you worry.
Yeah, good girl. Yeah, no, and I really like the way that it's kind of evolved, really. And it was all, for me, it was all around that waiting room experience. But, you know, putting it together with the travel agency concept, and modelling it on something like that. And I think particularly given the current crisis that we're in now, and, you know, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with travel agent business owners and all the rest of it. And, you know, honestly, it breaks my heart that so, you know, our industry has really been decimated like big time, and will continue to be, no doubt, for the, you know, years to come. But I get excited when I see that, you know, and I say to people that I know, don't think you haven't got some amazing skills that you could put into something else. It doesn't mean you have to give up your travel business. Maybe you hibernate it, park it for a while, whatever, but out of it, something else might come, some other passion that they might have. And, you know, I guess for me, it was just that passion of seeing people in the waiting room and some of the stories that I thought, I've got to be able to somehow, you know, bring it in line with what we do in travel, because travel agents are really amazing people with what they do with people and sourcing people and looking after people and chasing up for people. That's exactly what we do at Blue Dot. It's exactly the same model.
Yeah.
Just looking after people. Yeah.
So, Crystal, if anyone who's listening wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, we're on a few little social platforms and things. So we have a website, which is www.bluedotarmy.com.au. And I have to say that it's BLUEDOTARMY.com.au. The reason I say that is someone tried to find it once going blue with a dot and army with a dot. And of course that doesn't work because in our minds we use the dot. So that was interesting. So it's that. We also are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and of course we're on LinkedIn as well. And all the contact details and everything there. I mean, if people want to follow us and keep up to date with what we're doing, would be awesome. Or they can jump onto the website and join our newsletter. We don't spam. We probably only send one every 2 months, which is just a bit of an update of what we're doing. And we want to be really transparent with the funds as well. The third part of what we offer is our program that we call Change 500. And our aim is to get 500 people donating 100 taxable dollars every year. And it sits in its dedicated bank bucket. And we use that to change those experiences. So for Riley's mum, you know, some people might say, oh, really, taking her out for lunch and giving her a massage, that's so important for us. And so people see what we donate, and that's where it comes from, is that Change 500 bucket. We go, you know what, we could change her world for 2 hours, it's just worth it. So that's what that comes from. So sometimes the concierge program, the Change 500 works together, sometimes it doesn't. If people aren't necessarily in financial distress or they're okay, it could just be, like I said, sitting with them in the waiting room is as much as they need. Yesterday I had a couple arrive the night before from Canberra, starting their treatment plan over here in Perth. And they, you know, I took them out and just orientated around where they're staying, around the hotel, some of the things they may want to do, they might like to consider. And at the end of it, we went and had coffee and a lunch after he'd been for his doctor's appointments and everything, took them down to the beach, even though it wasn't the best day. But he wanted to go for a swim after his treatment, so I drove them down to the beach to show them where. And he just sat there and he said, you know, Crystal, he said, I can't believe it. He said, we're in Perth because I've got to have treatment. And he said, and yet I really feel like I'm already on a holiday. And I said, that's what we like to hear. So as much as the medical side is, you know, what they're here for, if you can make the other experiences around that just that little bit better, then that's all good.
Yeah, because, so you said that couple have come from Canberra, and you also had Andy, he came from Queensland from memory?
Yeah, from Queensland, yeah. And then we had Frank just went back to Darwin last week. Yeah,
now for people who are listening who are probably wondering, why are they coming to Perth? Because surely these cities will have their own facilities. Perth has is home to, it's a very special machine. I can't quite remember the name of it. Yeah. I presume all coming over for that. Is that right?
They are, yeah. So another first, so along with the chemo at home nurses that they set up, there's another organisation in Perth called 5D Clinics Cyberknife. And funnily enough, a friend of mine was at a wedding and she overheard this man, which I think she was probably just quietly probably eavesdropping. But anyway, she said she overheard him. And he was talking about this Cyberknife radiation treatment. She said, oh, a friend of mine started this charity. And he said, tell her to contact me. So I went and contacted them, went down and had a look at this amazing piece of machinery. And it's a robot that, I think it was about $12 million worth, this robot. And it's very targeted. So it's kind of like laser type. So it's so deep, the treatment. So for someone like Andy, who had prostate cancer, a traditional radiation, he may have had to have potentially 36 treatments, 38 maybe. And he was also told that there was a very strong possibility he would lose part or most of his bladder. With the Cyberknife, he's been over, came over last year during COVID, and he had 5 treatments in total. He celebrated a special birthday last week, and 2 days before his birthday, the doctors told him he is officially in remission.
Oh, amazing.
So his experience from the radiation was a lot less, like he wasn't so tired. You still get the effects because obviously the amount they put through at the one time is deeper, but you don't have to have as many. So the recovery sort of straight after is a lot better. And that robot, at the moment, there's only one of its type in the country, and that's here in Perth. So that's why we then support them, because most often if people are not from Perth, the first thing they say is, oh, where do we stay? So what it alleviates these people to do is they just go, oh, hang on a minute, we'll send you across to Blue Dot Army. Then we get in touch with the people and say, right, so what do you need? How long are you coming for? And that's where I say we don't really even know what cancer they have. So we're not an individual cancer, we're just a one-stop shop for whatever they need to support that treatment program. So if they need a car, hire, whatever, we can source that for them or get some prices, whatever they need. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what I picked up when I first met you, which I thought was so unique, is that it's everything that's not medical. You know nothing about the cancer. You're not going to give them any, this is what you should do in terms of making yourself better. It's purely all the non-medical stuff that just makes life a little bit easier and a little bit more enjoyable when you're going through a really shit time, to put it bluntly. Yeah. I went past, we were driving past it's on is it on Stirling Highway?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
We drove past it and I got very excited because I was like, that's the big thing that Crystal has, so she'd be using.
And, I love their waiting room, the actual waiting room experience. They had someone come in to design it. So it's not your typical hospital waiting room, beautiful big high chairs, high back chairs. So you've got them in little sections. So if you've got your own little group sitting in the waiting room, it's like you've got your own corner of it, a nice coffee pod machine, beautiful distilled water, sparkling water, just a different experience to what you get in other places.
Even worse if you're by yourself, because it's sometimes worse to be sitting there by yourself, seeing all these groups together. You're kind of like, oh, it's just me on my own. So sometimes nice to have your privacy for whatever reason why you're there by yourself, because sometimes that is a preference. So thank you so much for sharing that. And like Crystal said, Blue Dot Army website.com.au, go and check it out. If you give it a Google, it'll work. And she's on LinkedIn, and she pops up a lot on Instagram, which is fantastic. But yeah, check out more of Crystal's story, because it is really quite unique. And she's turned a situation that is really quite rough into one that is now helping lots and lots of people. And I can't thank you enough, Crystal, because I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. And thanks for allowing me to come on and talk to you about it. Actually, it's really nice to sort of, to be able to share our stories, and we've got many more stories and people coming through now, which is great that we can help them out.
Amazing. No, I hope someone who's listening, who's maybe just a little bit lost at the moment, it helps them, gives them some direction, because I can't even begin to imagine what a scary process that would be to find out and not really know where to turn. So Crystal is the person that you want to turn to if, unfortunately, you are going through this at the moment, or if you know anyone else who is.
Yep. We're here to help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Crystal, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, take care.